Hi, I'm Jack Zucker. I'm author of Sheets of Sound for Guitar, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a simple approach to using force on the guitar and over a Gm7 chord, and from there you can take it a little further. I'm going to show you just a very simple method that I use. Now, when I use force, I'm not always using perfect force. I'm using enharmonic force out of the scale. This is just one particular variation that you can use, and I do it a million different ways, but one choice is, say, over Gm7, I'm going to take it in terms of tri-note force that I can play on various string combinations. So the bottom one would be moving to the next string, and then from there you can take it a number of different ways, but here I'm going to play. And let me let you hear what that sounds like over the Gm7 chord. First in triplets and slow, so it's easy to understand. Now I'll play it with eighth notes, and you'll hear that playing the three-note groupings, but in eighth notes gives you kind of a push because you've got the rhythmic displacement of the triplet happening at the eighth note speed. Now, that's the simplest way, and you can adapt that to fit basically any chord you want to play over. In this case, it's very simple because it's a static chord, but it works just as well for complex chord progressions. The actual chord progression becomes somewhat irrelevant as you play these things because you realize the melody of the fourth pattern is actually drawing the listener's attention away from the actual chord progression. And like a lot of outside playing, the user recognizes the patterns inherent in what you're playing, and they become the predominant force and not the legitimate theory, quote unquote, about what the chords are doing and what the notes are functioning to within the chord. So I can take, having said that, a set of notes that are based off of what I just played and move them around, and it still sounds good. And even though what I'm moving it around is not necessarily anything related to the original chord. So I'll start with some of the notes in the chord, and then I'll just sort of move it around randomly, and you'll hear what that sounds like. I'll start off with the triplets again, just to make it easier to listen to. And I'm just mostly using what I call half-step displacement, which I discussed a little bit in the earlier pentatonics lesson. And you can probably hear what I was doing there. I was using some melodies that were in the bass. I was using some pentatonics. I was using, actually in some cases, I was using like a whole tone pattern, but playing perfect force off of the whole tone pattern. And I found that you can take these patterns, play them over certain chords where the perfect force that are on top of the bass note don't necessarily make sense in context of the particular scale that you're using. So for example, if I'm playing a G whole tone type of scale, it doesn't matter that the notes that are on top of the bass note aren't part of the whole tone scale. The user's ear will still hear that as a whole tone scale. And I'll demonstrate this to you. So I'll start it on C because the Gm7 kind of infers a C7. And you can hear that I'm playing whole tone types of lines, but many of the notes aren't actually over the whole tone because they're perfect force. And so if you were listening to it the way I hear it at least, I'm hearing the bass note and the whole tone is coming from the bass note. So that is what I hear, and that is what the listener is going to predominantly hear. And the same thing, I can choose to use like a diminished chord. So let me let you hear what that sounds like. I'll use the diminished chord as the bass, but I'm putting perfect force on top of that. And so basically, oops. And let me let you hear that over the chord progression. And so that is the basic concept of this thing. And moving it around is a simple thing that you just move it 1/2 a step away, or you can move it a whole step or a minor third or anything you want to do. So a lot of times when I'm playing this, I'll play two groupings of fourths. I might move it up a tritone, come down a fourth, tritone. And the user doesn't hear and obviously should not be aware of the theory of what you're doing. The user hears kind of a stair climbing effect when you do things like that. And so they will hear it in terms of almost like harp-like or residual things from their daily lives, like stair climbing. It just creates an effect in the mind, and it's unimportant how it relates to the actual chord that's being played underneath it. The most important thing is playing something that rhythmically is locked in, and I apologize for some of these which were not rhythmically locked in, but getting rhythmically locked in and having some type of recognizable melody, predominantly in the bass in the case of how I'm demonstrating it here, and starting and ending at a point where it resolves, creates some chaos in the middle, and then resolves back. And once again, I'll show you some of that with the chord underneath of it. Now I threw in a few enharmonic fourths there, which is not part of this lesson, but I will go into that in a subsequent lesson. So I hope I didn't confuse you with adding so much stuff in here and so much variety. And sorry about the chord flip I did in the background there. The chord was under my feet and I didn't want to fall. But I wanted to thank you for tuning in, listening, and give me some feedback on what you think of this lesson and what you'd like to see in the future, because I'd like to make this channel more about lessons and teaching and expanding everybody's knowledge, including myself. So until next time, this is Jack Zucker signing out. Thanks for listening.